Group in Congress renews work on police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road. Also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit sodi.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
An alarming UN report on magical realism released this week warns of increased incidences of women's tears flooding the entire world. A UN committee linked the catastrophic phenomena to matronly widows, commonly named Tita and Esmeralda, who wept for up to 90 days on end about their estranged lovers.
Just consider how detrimental it is to a nation's workforces to have thousands of its plantation overseers simply disappear one night into the midsummer fog, only to return decades later without having aged a single day. Put simply, if such phenomena are not immediately halted, the effects on the international community will be catastrophic.
The nation's limo drivers spent a magical prom night playing scratch-off tickets in the parking lot this week. According to sources, chauffeurs nationwide began their enchanting evening by cramming swank magazines into their glove compartments before dropping off their students at a school gym, working through a stunning assortment of lotto cards, and dining upon a wide range of microwave-heated taquitos from a nearby 7-Eleven.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back. Free Talk Live.
Where did we go?
Well, that's my shtick. I don't know if you remember.
Just always back, regardless if it's the beginning of the show or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, nice.
I stole it from Z105, an old Saturday Night Live skit. So that's just my shtick.
Okay.
And we're back.
Right. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I love that DJ voice. I always want to do that on the air.
Go for it. Give it a shot.
Welcome to Free Talk Live. We're here to talk about whatever you guys want to. I don't remember the number.
603-283-6160.
There we go. So give us a call.
Nice.
Right. So they do this skit, and it's like Jimmy Fallon and Ben Affleck.
And Tool. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, so it's just my shtick. I'm always back. I do my own podcast. That's how I lead into that. Always.
Love your podcast, by the way.
And we're back. That's like,
you should pimp that while you're talking about it.
Anarchistexperience.com. The podcast is called The Anarchist Experience. And we were talking about this a bit pre-show about my podcast because now we're doing it on Clubhouse. So find a way to find me on Clubhouse, Richie Rich, and then give me a follow because that's the only way. Like it's a podcast. So we normally record at a specific time, but not this week because I have some other prior obligations during the regular time. So give us a follow, and then at some point Clubhouse will allow us to start our own club, and then you can get into that.
I've only just started recently hearing about Clubhouse. Is that like a Discord type platform, or what is that?
It's hard to explain, and I will do my best. It is a broadcast platform for community engagement. Okay. So the Clubhouse app itself has no way to record the conversation that's being had. Like, it's very conversational. So you follow someone and they go like, I'm going to start a conversation. And then if they're popular, like hundreds of people might listen in to what they have to say. Like they have their very own TED Talk with as many followers as you can get.
Very cool.
But conversationally in the app, like if you're listening to it and you have something of value to add, you can like raise your hand. And then when you raise your hand, they can click like invite them to talk. And then you get to say what you want.
Oh, neat. That sounds really cool. I have to check it out.
Real quick, just from Wikipedia, Clubhouse is an invitation-only social media app for iOS that facilitates auditory communication through rooms that can accommodate groups of up to 5,000 people.
Which would be ridiculous.
Yeah, the audio-only app hosts virtual rooms for live discussions with opportunities for individuals to participate through speaking and listening. And then the other bit is that the app was first introduced to iOS in March of 2020, so relatively new. Clubhouse has said that they are developing it also for Android. In January 2021,
the company, let's keep it elite.
The company announced that they will soon start developing the Android version. They hired an Android software developer, implying the company has started development of the Android version. So currently it's iOS only.
Right, which is fine because I have an iPhone and my buddy who suggested this has an iPhone. So I'm like, all right, we'll just see what happens. The main reason for us moving to Clubhouse is that for a long time, right, we did a live show, broadcast live on the internet, had a call-in number. Call-in numbers are still there, but people are too afraid to call in and talk to us, man. and, get their statist ideas shut down by, the resident anarchist and, libertarians, as it were. And so we weren't getting engagement. And so he went, hey, this Clubhouse thing might be good for engagement if you want to build this podcast thing. I went, I don't really care.
Roll with it.
It's a hobby. Like I don't put a ton of effort into it. One of the reasons that makes coming to Free Talk Live easy as far as the show prep is concerned is I'm already reading a ton of news articles to prepare for the podcast. And now I just separate, right? Like this will be good for Free Talk Live. This will be good for the Anarchist Experience. And it just works out.
Right. And you're familiar with like pressing buttons and putting your face in front of a microphone, reading some ad copy, that kind of stuff.
And reading the ad copy is new to me. Yeah. Like I did that,
Sure, but you've been reading articles, or reading ad copies, not that.
Right. Yeah. That's easy stuff. And that's what, it's kind of what I think gave Mark the confidence of going like, I don't feel well tonight. So you're just going to sit there and do the show.
Yep.
I went, all right, we'll see how this goes.
Cool.
And then the last time I did it with, Matt, just me and Matt, because that's all we had available.
Who are you, by the way?
I'm Richie Rich.
And who's this guy?
This is Tyler.
And who am I?
I hopefully you're the captain.
The good captain.
Well, I am, but I'm also substitute Matt.
Oh, okay. Well, we should start right into that then, because I believe if substitute Matt were here, he would want to talk about guns.
Oh, I believe so. And in fact, I brought this article in specifically to just give myself some street cred as substitute Matt, while nobody can ever be Matt, right? At least like I can try and do a little bit of justice by
I've been sitting on a Bigfoot article for like 2 weeks just to unleash when he was here. And then I get the word that he's like, oh, I'm not going to be here tonight. And
yeah, if you could find an article about a gun wielding Bigfoot, I think that would be Matt's like
I would not like I wouldn't do that article as substitute Matt.
You'd have to let him.
What I would do is I would save it. I would send it to him and be like, dude, I couldn't do this as substitute you. This is totally your article. I wonder if Bigfoot would carry like, what would he carry? Would he carry like a Glock? Would he carry like an AR?
I mean, it's Bigfoot. He's huge. He would carry an MG34, right? Like he would just strap it on his back and carry it like a
He's
like
got a
rifle.
cannon. He's just carrying it around.
The minigun.
This from Reason.com. There are several articles on the internet that have the same information, but gun-making CAD files free to spread around the internet, the Ninth Circuit Court rules.
Oh, great. Now that we got their permission, it's okay.
Like the Ninth Circuit Court has basically said, well, they're already on the internet and they've been spread around the internet, so they can go ahead and continue to be spread around the internet.
Right. It's like when a teacher loses control of the class and it goes, yeah, okay, just do that then. Just play amongst yourselves.
Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it.
Yeah. Basically.
They're trying to get ahead of the parade on this one.
But apparently states had been trying to stop the feds from loosening their hold on certain software, but the appeals court says they don't have that power. In a case that was already moot in the colloquial sense of the term, if not the legal one, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decided yesterday that an attempt by various states to stop the federal government from not restricting certain computer files can go no further. So for now, CAD files that can help instruct certain devices to make weapons at home can be legally spread into the public domain, which they already were. Wasn't a problem to get. You can go and you download them right now.
Yeah. Those who wanted the files had the files, and those who wanted to like print the guns were doing so.
Well, and we did an article recently about a gun that you can print with a $250 printer, and the materials were like maybe $100. So the total cost was like $350 to get into it. And so the history of the issues behind this case, though, it's the state of Washington versus the State Department, is long and convoluted and embedded in arcane arguments about proper administrative procedure. What triggered the states to want to interfere in federal discussions was the result of a resolution in 2018 of a lawsuit from Defense Distributed, a company dedicated to the spread of gun-making software, founded by 3D weapon entrepreneur and provocateur Cody Wilson, whom we've covered extensively here on Free Talk Live. In settling a case challenging their restrictions on such files, the government agreed to remove them from the control of International Traffic and Arms Regulations, or ITAR, if you prefer the government's four-letter acronym. The states pretended they were fighting for public safety against the threat of computer-assisted homemade gun making. But their efforts were, at their core, an attempt to make the government continue constitutionally questionable policies restricting the free spread of information in the form of certain computer files, even though that information is obviously free to be spread through other means.
That's an important part here, is the constitutionality of it, because the 2A groups, people who are big fans of the Second Amendment, that's one of the biggest talking points when it comes to 3D printed guns or ghost guns, is that manufacturing your own weapons has always been legal in America.
Yep.
From the beginning.
Since the dawn of man. Well, no, actually.
Since the dawn of America.
Of the firearm.
Yeah.
So if you have thoughts on this, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. More coming up on Free Talk Live.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
With each successive bite failing to relieve his anxieties, increasingly worried man Dylan Hawks told reporters today that he has yet to come across any trace of guacamole in his burrito, despite having specifically requested it when ordering.
No, there definitely wasn't any guac there. Cheese, beans, chorizo. Oh man, I hope they didn't forget.
Hawks has continued to maintain hope that there may still be an undiscovered sliver of avocado somewhere in his tortilla. However, with his fears for the meal mounting, Hawks has reportedly considered asking the cashier for a refund at various points while eating the burrito.
The thing is, if you had a burrito and it was missing cheese, you might not notice it because there's sour cream, but guacamole is completely different. I just don't know how I wouldn't have tasted it by now. Christ. I'm almost done with this thing.
This is the Onion News Network.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
And we're back. See, it's my shtick. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. The live call-in radio program. If you're listening to us live, that is. Could be the podcast after the fact. I don't care. Tis I, Mr. Richie Rich, along with...
Substitute Matt, a.k.a. the Captain.
And Tyler.
And Substitute Matt, a.k.a. the Captain. You were talking about this, whatever it is, 3D printed CAD files free to spread around the internet with permission now.
Yes, it's an article from Reason.com, and it talks plenty about the ability. Basically, some states wanted the federal government to stop allowing the files with the information on how to make the guns in your 3D printers to be distributed freely. And of course, it was shot down for many reasons.
Well, you say of course.
Well,
there was a chance that it wasn't going to get shut down and it was still going to be underground.
I say of course because the next thing that they cite in the article is they say that, for example, gun making instructions in a book, right, would be legally protected expression and recognized as such. So let's say there's a PDF file or even some sort of custom file that you have to download to like insert into your 3D printer to have the instruction to do the thing to make the parts and whatever, that kind of a thing. If that were in paperback form, that would be perfectly legal.
Sure.
And so that's the argument that they've made here, is that, hey, this is just data. If it were presented in any other form besides an electronic file, say a PDF or even like a custom file that only like a 3D printer can read, it's still just information. Mm-hmm. That's all that it is.
Yeah. I don't think we can ignore the fact that having the CAD file, right, where you put it into your 3D printer and you go like print, is a lot simpler and easier to do than how to manufacture a pistol from scratch.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the book form, if it were to be printed in a book form, that would be easily recognized as free speech, right? Because now it's a book.
Yeah.
That, so.
And I think there's like a meme floating around there with that book, because there is a book like on how to manufacture firearms.
There's several.
They exist.
Yes. Right. And have for.
Right. But the meme going around is like, this is illegal. You would not want to download this and have this capability because of,
Well, and then,
but it's not.
I think the problem that they would have is if they made these homemade gun making CAD files illegal, then they would have to almost make CAD files illegal. And we know CAD files are used for far more than just manufacturing firearms. They're made for medical equipment. Mm-hmm. So if you're out in the field, the folks in like Antarctica who are doing all the exploration and that kind of stuff, if somebody breaks their arm, they don't just create a cast out of like plaster and cloth. They 3D print one. Yeah, right. They've got a 3D printer and the plastic loaded in it, and they just measure the dude's arm and they print a cast, and that's how it's done.
Right, and I think what they're most concerned about is usability that comes with these 3D printers is going to get better, right? Like, if you're not a technical person right now, using a 3D printer is kind of tough, right? But there's going to come a day where literally anybody can just go buy a 3D printer, and that same day they can download one of these files, hit print, and start making parts for a gun.
And I think a lot of that toughness getting started is designing these CAD files, like having the engineering know-how to put together the file that the 3D printer needs to print what you want, right? Because you can have the idea in your head, but then you have to have the technical know-how to design that file, right? I think one of the areas where 3D, I think it's like Thingiverse or something like that, where 3D printing takes off, is most of what you want has already been designed by somebody else, and all you need to know is how to hook up the plastics to the 3D printer, and then hook that up to the software.
Yeah.
And that part, the more that these files perpetuate themselves throughout the internet, the easier it becomes to go like, no, I'm just going to get a spool of whatever colors I want. I got my 3D printer set up, and I have all the files I need to compile whatever I want at, on this website or whatever.
Right.
And
or on
then,
my phone or whatever. Yeah.
And that's where it becomes easy.
Really interesting to me about this. Cody Wilson had just spoke at a conference regarding this recently. It's titled Post-Political, a speech by Cody Wilson. You can look it up on YouTube. He talks about how one of the biggest problems our country's having right now as far as national security goes is that if we wanted to revitalize our military and start like updating all of these systems that we have, we don't have the machining capability, nor do we have the technical know-how in our society to do that anymore. There's not enough people out there that know how to make military-grade equipment and weapon systems to the specifications that they need, because the government is so hard set on getting rid of all this information within the public sphere. So at the same time, they're like, yeah, this is going to become a problem for us nationally, but we also don't trust our own people to know enough to do it. And that's just pathetic.
Well, and that goes back to what I tell people all the time, which is military strategy 101 says the most difficult place to conquer is a heavily armed populace.
Absolutely.
And every military general strategist, anybody who plans military maneuvers and that kind of thing, they're taught this it's basic 101 stuff.
Yeah.
So if the government really cared about your safety or protecting the borders or, keeping somebody from invading, they would literally give you guns and ammunition.
At the very least, they would make it mandatory that you learn gun safety.
Yeah,
it would be
I still wouldn't want it to be mandatory.
I feel you.
Right, but they would make it because they're government. They would make it mandatory in grade school or high school or whatever for you to take gun training and all that kind of stuff, because that's how somebody who cared about their population would proceed with that knowledge.
Right. One of the dumbest arguments that you hear from anti-gun communities is that they're like, what good are your guns going to do against the government if it decides to crack down on us, or a foreign government? They've got drones, they've got missiles. Your guns are worthless. And it's like,
then let us keep them.
Look at history. I mean, look at Vietnam, look at Afghanistan. You don't need to have tanks to win a war.
How many empires died in Afghanistan because they couldn't fight the regular dudes with guns in caves?
Yeah, the list goes all the way back to Rome, maybe beyond. It's ridiculous.
So I will say this very briefly on the use of guns in public schools. On my way into high school, pre-freshman year, summer school, shooting a rifle was part of the curriculum. And that may date me a little bit, but this was the mid-90s when I was starting high school. And that's the first time I shot a rifle.
That's awesome. I thought that went out because they didn't have that in my high school. They had archery.
Private school.
Oh, okay.
So that might be different.
Okay.
But it was part of the curriculum pre-freshman year.
Nice.
So if you got to shoot guns on your way into high school, give us a call. 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. More gun talk live coming up with Fake Matt after the break.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Phone records, financial and location data, Prism, Tempora, X-Keyscore, Boundless Informant. Hey, y'all, Scott Horton here for offnow.org. Now, here's the deal. Due to the Snowden revelations, we have a great opportunity for a short period of time to get some real rollback of the national surveillance state. Now, they're already trying to tire us by introducing fake reforms in the Congress. And the courts, they betrayed their sworn oaths to the Constitution and Bill of Rights again and again, and can in no way be trusted to stop the abuses for us. We've got to do it ourselves. How? We nullify it at the state level. It's still not easy, but the Off Now project of the 10th Amendment Center has gotten off to a great start. I mean it. There's real reason to be optimistic here. They've gotten their model legislation introduced all over the place, in state after state. I've lost count, more than a dozen. You're always wondering, yeah, but what can we do? Here's something important, something that can work if we do the work. Get started cutting off the NSA support in your state. Go to offnow.org.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
We are back. Woo! Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. The radio show where you can call in and talk about whatever you want when we have time to answer the phones. It is I, Mr. Richie Rich, along with
Fake Matt
and Tyler.
And Fake Matt, we're going to get back into your article in a minute here, but I first must tell you about Bitcoin.
Tell me more.
Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now and click on Get Started at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll find all sorts of valuable information neatly organized to suit your needs. There is no longer an excuse for ignoring this important world-changing information. If you are a knowledgeable crypto user, you can check out news.bitcoin.com to get the latest headlines of all the news that's relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for everything crypto, like getting a wallet app, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news, all on a slick and easy-to-use website, Bitcoin.com. And I would say go there and follow all the latest Bitcoin is dead news, Bitcoin crashed again news. What are you going to do with this Bitcoin thing now that it's worthless news? And all the while, it just keeps going up and up and up and up, and then down and then back up again. So there you go, Bitcoin.com. I'm wearing the Bitcoin.com shirt that was provided to me. It's like my Free Talk Live uniform.
I do have some show prep for Bitcoin.com, but I'm actually saving that for, I think, Saturday.
You sandbagger.
Yeah.
You show prep sandbagger.
It is.
I'm saving all the
true.
good stuff for my best night.
Well, no, I mean,
when we have more callers and listeners.
No, it's not about that. It's about the
you
host.
Thursday people, you don't get to talk about Bitcoin.
Thursday we talk about guns. Okay,
It's about the
Gun
host,
night.
right? And so since I'm fake Matt, I figured it was more important to bring an article about 3D printed guns than something from Bitcoin.
No, it's a good time. This, if you're part of the 2A community in any shape or form or fashion, this is like the biggest news of the day.
You should probably define what 2A community means
The
to
Second Amendment people,
to listeners who are like, the what?
the gun lovers.
The right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
Shall not. Can you read, sir?
I did see a meme.
Have you seen the Second Amendment?
I've seen a meme that I never saw before, and it was a picture of a dude, and like his arms had been ripped off and replaced with bear arms, like all furry and claws.
The right to bear arms.
The right to bear, BEAR.
It's coming soon.
Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
Transhuman bears.
So since you are fake Matt tonight, do you want to carry on with this CAD article, or have you?
I mean, I mean, we've talked about the gist of it. I mean, really, the government just said, no, it's information. You can have it. It should be freely available to distribute. It goes into the details of, what happened and why it was a case at all and all that kind of stuff. And we'll, of course, publish this article to all of our social media so you can read through the whole thing yourself should you want to. But, that's the gist, I think.
Okay. One of the interesting articles that I came across, I don't have it with me as show prep, but I found the information to be a little, I want to say, dichotomous with, I think, the message that they were trying to portray. And it had to do with this 3D printed guns, because a lot of the discussion around 3D printed guns is you can't stop it, right? And that, despite the claims from the left or the anti-gun nuts about, look how many, like these are the weapons that are invading our streets and are used in crimes because they cannot be traced. And then I come across this article about, how the proliferation of 3D printed guns, and it said something to the effect of like 41% of all ATF confiscations were like ghost guns, 3D printed guns that he.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't really
That seems
surprise
high.
me.
Okay.
Does it?
It's
41%?
It seems high to me.
I'd be surprised if like 10% of all the guns in the United States were ghost guns. 3D printed
Right, but
guns,
I'm saying what the ATF's focus is, like they're not going after legally purchased guns that people have registered or whatever. Like they need to have a job to do, and that's part of why they do this whole song and
There's
dance.
technically nothing illegal about printing your own gun.
Right. That's part of it. There's nothing illegal about that currently. This kind of solidifies the fact that it can be proliferated on the internet.
Right.
So what are the crimes that are being accused? This is my question for the article, and again, I don't have it in front of me. What are the crimes that they are accusing these people of which they are investigating
in order to justify getting the guns?
And then confiscating that percentage
of all the guns that they confiscate, right?
Well, I mean, that's part of the thing with the ATF is that it's like if they don't have something to do, they will find something to do. And this is the problem with any government agency. Like as it grows larger and gets more funding, in order to justify its own existence, it needs to find people to go after. And then people that own ghost guns are the perfect target for them because there's already such a negative public bias against ghost guns. This idea that it's like, oh no, people are producing their own guns and we don't know where they are. It's like you were saying earlier, there's people on YouTube, you can watch videos of people teaching you how to make guns from parts they found in a scrapyard.
Yep.
This is part of American culture. And, you know, the anti-gun community that exists always wants to talk about how they want us to, the pro-gun community, they want us to cater to their sensibilities and to get rid of our guns for their safety. Well, I say that we need to start countering the argument and tell them, listen, these things ain't going away. And pretty soon, making a gun is going to be as easy as punching numbers into your microwave. So you better learn how to handle a firearm and protect yourself because this isn't changing for your sensibilities.
Yeah, start teaching your kids.
Yep.
I do want to just say that the last paragraph of this article here says, a Defense Distributed believes that simple CAD files, not to mention such things as blueprints or instructional videos, which were arguably restrictable under the old ITAR rules before this ruling, are now officially liberated thanks to the Ninth Circuit Court's decision yesterday. So this ruling did make a difference for some forms of like how-to manuals. Mm-hmm. So it made a difference in that it sort of liberated different forms of this information that exists in addition to the CAD files itself. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered that little bit there in the article. But as far as 3D printing guns at home is concerned, bring it on. You know, it should be in every home. It should be like the replicator on Star Trek. You should be able to walk up to it and go, you know, I'd like a Smith & Wesson, please. Beep, beep, boop, boop.
And stuff like that, like, I'm okay with that sentiment. I have trouble saying that, you know, that it should be in every home or that it must be in every home.
Should, you know, I'm just saying, like the microwave, right? Like your example, I think, was spot on. Like, if you want one, you can go to the appliance store and buy the thing.
It should be that easy for those who want it.
Because it's not going to be just guns, right? 3D printing as a technology has a wide breadth of stuff, right?
Yes.
You know, oh my gosh, I have a broken down 1978 stove and they don't make parts for it anymore. Let me go online. Oh, look, I can scan the part and now I can boop, 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 and it prints the part for me and I can repair my stove.
Man, I wish I had that. I had a 1989 Mercury Cougar. Mm-hmm. And I used to have to crawl in, climb in.
Impersonation. Was it owned by like an older woman on the prowl?
No. It was actually, I had the car for over a decade. It was like that was the only car that I ever call my car is that 1989 Mercury Cougar. All other cars I have driven.
Richie Rich, I like a point that you just made because I want to counter it. I disagree with you. The idea that it's like, look, if you don't want to own a gun, you shouldn't have to. And I'll agree in the extent that I don't think that guns should be mandatory. Like, I don't think the government should have a compulsory military service like Switzerland where you learn to use them. But, you know, we'll get into this after the break, and I'll explain my thought on this, and we'll go into some really white-pilling news about firearms because we're going to keep the tempo going, I think, with guns because this is really fun for me.
It's going to be the theme for at least the first few minutes here. More coming up. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to get your thoughts on the air. That's 603-283-6160. More coming up. Free Talk Live.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
There it is.
There it is.
I was so stoked.
You got to check out that clip, Kenton. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Back with the live call-in show. Currently talking about 3D printed guns, the CAD files. I think we're going to move on from that topic. However, there was still a little bit more to be said about the 3D printed aspect of it. I know
you had disagreed with something that Richie Rich
I
said.
disagreed with the premise that, if people don't want to own guns, they don't have to. And,
How do you disagree with that?
Well, I'll explain. It's nuanced. I'm not saying directly that it's like, yes, you have to own a gun. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Like,
I'm pretty sure we agree then.
If you're a pacifist, and you have a religious exemption from using violence in any circumstance, then by all means be a pacifist. But this idea that, like, the problem with the gun argument today is that there is a large swath of the population that wants to export their responsibility to self-defense to other people. And I take issue with that because to me it's self-infantilization. There's this whole group of people that go, I don't think that it's necessary that I protect myself, and it's scary and I don't want to do it. And I think that there's a message to be said where it's like, no, the responsibility to defend yourself is your own, and you need to own that as an adult human. It's like no one else is obligated.
I'll agree with you on this because there's two things that I was not taught in school, and that was rights. Where do rights come from? What are rights? Where do they come from? And then responsibilities.
And that's something our society is forgetting about entirely.
I will disagree with both of you on this, particularly your rights aspect of it, Captain, because I can contract those rights out to whomever I wish.
Right, but I wasn't taught where they come from.
Understood. But if you're saying that your self-defense is your responsibility as an adult, no, I can contract that out.
But it's still your responsibility to contract that out. It's your responsibility to handle your own personal safety. Whether it's you buying a gun or whether it's you contracting it out, you're still taking the responsibility for your own personal safety.
But I think what Tyler is suggesting is that in order to take responsibility for my own personal safety, I must own and use and learn how to defend myself on an individual level, preferably with a firearm.
I mean, none of that's a bad idea, but have to.
I'd say it's the wisest choice.
Yeah, I'm never going to say have to for anything, right? Because I don't want to force anybody to do anything. But
if I don't want to, I can contract it out.
Right. And I guess my point was kind of this idea that, like, especially in the libertarian community, we're always talking about rights. And I don't feel like people are talking about responsibilities enough. And also there is a place in society for social sanctions, right? Like, me being a libertarian doesn't mean that I'm like, hey, you could do whatever you want. And like, there's no rules. And like, you know, if you just want to be a complete degenerate and lazy, like, that's your total right. It's like,
That totally is.
Sure, it's
your right. As long as you
don't
infringe on the liberties and rights of someone
else.
And
I agree with that. But there is a place for social pressures where I can say, that is your right. However, I'm going to judge you negatively and harshly for being a degenerate and for being a weak person in society and for making us all weaker. If I know that my neighbors aren't arming themselves and preparing for the defense of the community and they leave it up to me knowing, oh, well, Tyler's got a gun. If something ever happens, Tyler's going to take care of us. That puts more responsibility on me.
No, it doesn't.
Well, no, it does. Unless, of course, you're contracting for that specific purpose.
Yeah.
Right. In which case, if they like decided that they were going to pay me, then you have like a tertiary
And now you've got
situation.
Tyler's, defense system, whatever,
etc.
Business. You've got a business around it now.
Right.
And that could work. Let's go to the phones. We have Steve from Arkansas. Steve, you're on the air.
Good evening, fellas. How we doing?
We're well.
Good.
Good. I like talking about guns, obviously. I live in gun country. I used to have a large collection, but they got unfortunately lost in a boating accident.
It's all too frequent.
Happens to the best of us, yeah.
I know. It's an epidemic. But anyway, so I don't know if you guys have heard about our governor, Asa Hutchinson's been in the news lately. A couple weeks ago, the Arkansas House and Senate passed a transgender bill that essentially it just says if you're under 18, you're not allowed to get hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery. Once you're 18, you want to do it, knock yourself out.
Okay.
So Governor Hutchinson vetoed this. Now he's a Republican. You would have thought that he would have signed it into law. He vetoed it. Second time he did that in the last 2 weeks, the House and Senate passed a gun law bill that just simply said, like several other states have, if there are federal gun laws coming going forward, we will not uphold them. We will not help the federal government enforce them. We are not bound by federal law and gun laws.
I've heard of this. This has been enacted in many states.
Sanctuary states.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he vetoed that as well.
Wow.
So you got a bunch of pissed off rednecks down here. Like, I voted for this guy, and he's out here. Well, interestingly enough, he's in his lame duck. Like, this is his last term. In Arkansas, you can only be governor so many times, and then You got to let somebody else have it. Well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is going to be the next governor of Arkansas. Mark it down. It's a done deal. So she's already raised more money than Bill Clinton did in all of his elections combined, and when he was governor.
Oh, wow.
She's
So what are you expecting
governor.
from her on the gun issue then?
Oh, I mean, big things. I think, either way, it doesn't matter. Both of those bills, the House and the Senate, went ahead and overturned his veto, and the bills got signed into law. So the only reason he did that is because he's almost done, and he's lobbying for a spot on the board at Walmart. Well, funny enough, both times he did that, which company was the first one to comment about how proud they are of their governor? Walmart.
Right.
So
well, yeah, and it sounds
it's all just been a big political game.
Well, that's what you get for
his
politics.
benefit.
right. Right, and that's
So
what I was,
anyway,
that's what I was going to say is it sounds like it's just a ballerina act. It's all coordinated, and he's just trying to save face so he can get what he wants when he gets out, because he knew that the state government was going to overturn it anyway. And that is the problem with politics, is that it's all a game. It's all kayfabe. It's like it's like professional wrestling. It's
and
just
who's
an
the
act.
biggest bunch of liberals out there? Companies like Walmart.
Yep.
I mean, they're embracing this vaccine thing. And in fact, when the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, when they put it on hold because it was causing blood clots, the day that they said, okay, you know what, it does cause some blood clots sometimes, but it's worse having COVID, so we're going to go ahead and let you start taking it again. He was the first one to come out and say, schedule your vaccine, go get your vaccine. And I'm like, no, sorry, I'm not getting a vaccine. I had COVID back in, I don't know, August or so, and it's like a bad cold, maybe a little flu-like stuff. But
much like
I mean,
everything else we talk about on here, it should be up to the individual and their personal choice.
I had the COVID too.
Exactly.
It, symptoms for a couple of weeks and then a bunch of coughing for maybe another 4 or 5 days. And
well, I'm the guy. I called you guys back when I got it because I got the hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, that's
and
right.
Then
I remember you.
Our government, local government, said that the day after I got my prescription filled, they outlawed it to be prescribed for COVID.
Did it work for you?
Dude, I was in the hospital on Wednesday. I started taking that. I played golf on Friday.
Wow,
nice,
amazing.
So a buddy of mine, when it comes to the hydroxychloroquine, he does way more research than I do on this stuff. But one of the things that was proscribed by him and some others was, increase your vitamin D, increase your zinc, do the healthy things.
I did both of those.
Right. And what he said about the hydroxychloroquine was it was like it enhanced the receptiveness for the zinc, which is really what helps you. So you take the hydroxychloroquine, you take the zinc, and it makes the zinc more effective. And that would be a good reason, if you don't have access to
hydroxychloroquine. For your listeners that may not know this, the active ingredient in hydroxychloroquine is quinine, and that is also in tonic water. So if you can't get your hands on hydroxychloroquine, take vitamin D, zinc, a Z-Pack if you can get your hands on one, and drink tonic water.
There you go.
So anyway,
that's also good for malaria,
All right. Thank you for the call.
That's a really good point, though, just with the Republican governor. This idea, I think a lot of libertarians tend to lean right. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them do. And they look to Republicans and go, these guys will help us out. We see eye to eye on some stuff.
I think there's a split amongst libertarians.
There is a split.
And it depends on your personal demographic of whether you associate more with the left-leaning or the conservative-leaning libertarians. We can talk about that and more. If you call in, 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. More coming up on Free Talk Live.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. It's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A reach across the aisle. Lisa Brady, Fox News. A bipartisan group in Congress renews work on police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the 1-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road. Also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit sodi.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
Email is easy, instant, and free, and that can be real embarrassing. Email lacks the eye contact and body language you get in face-to-face conversation, or the tone of voice and other nuance you hear in a telephone conversation. Email is just words, often few words. We're all smothering in spam, so we often reply in terse fashion that's easy to misunderstand. And email doesn't cost you a postage stamp, and it lacks the deliberation time it'd take to walk to the snail mail box. So it's easy to succumb to the "oh yeah" stimulus response trap. When in doubt, don't snap back at snippy messages you get. You may have mistaken the sender's intent. And unless you're sending AOL to AOL, there's no unsend. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
After logging onto the Xbox One game console at one of his classmates' homes, 12-year-old Michael Cutler admitted to reporters this week that he really does not have the slightest clue about what his friend's name could be.
I mean, his name might be Brian. No, wait, Brian's my other friend, the one with the PS4. Yeah, if I'm being totally honest, there's no way I can tell you his name. Not a chance.
Noting that the boy had, quote, an absolutely huge HD TV and a bunch of games his mom won't let him play, Cutler confirmed that he could recall only the faintest details about his friend, including the fact that his mother makes chocolate chip cookies and that he has a dog of some kind.
He's got Killer Instinct, Assassin's Creed, Battlefield 4, and Titanfall? Man, that game's awesome. Anyway, I've just been calling him Flamethrower because that's his gamer tag. Hopefully he doesn't catch on. Hey, can I stick around for a few more hours? I'm so close to beating this.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back.
We are back.
back.
Hey.
Free Talk Live.
Are we back?
We are.
What if I'm front or side?
Where am I?
You can be a top or a bottom with me anytime.
I didn't say top or bottom. I said, what if I'm front or side?
Well, then we'll have to figure it out. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I love making co-hosts laugh while we're in the studio.
Yes. Good time.
That's good times. Tis I, Mr. Richie Rich, along with...
Fake Matt.
And Real Tyler.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Nice.
Verified.
Oh, did you KYC?
I got a little check mark next to my name.
He's got the blue check mark.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yep.
Yeah.
Put that on.
That's official. That's for sure.
So we've been talking about 3D printed guns, 3D printing in general, and Real Tyler. We had a conversation going on for a minute, but I want to get into this article and then we'll jump back on the phones here. Americans under 30 have rapidly turned against gun control laws. So there's hope for the next generation?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
Like I said, to me, that sounds pretty white pilling.
Why do you suppose the under 30 crowd, skews towards, more freedom when it comes to guns?
The under 30 crowd in general, surprises me that they skew to more freedom in general.
What do we call this new generation of people? Because the millennials were the newest ridiculed, sort of word that I've heard as far as generations are concerned. What's the generation after?
It's Gen Z.
Yeah,
Which Zoomers.
yeah, I'll accept Zoomers, but to me that seems younger than 30.
Yeah,
like
well,
30 to me still sounds
30
like
is a millennial. I'm a millennial. I think 30 all the way. Gen Z starts pretty. I think if you're like in your mid 20s at this point, you're considered Gen Z. If you're like 25 or younger, you're Gen Z now.
Okay.
Let me just say that I don't like these generational titles at all. I believe they are divisive. They prohibit older people from interfacing with younger people because, oh, you millennial, or oh, you boomer, right? We've heard all of this,
Right.
and we've seen all of it across social media and even in our daily lives. I think that these titles are there to assist in dividing us rather than uniting us.
Oh, I agree. I think it's definitely a way to turn us into these generational tribes. But on the flip side of that, you know, the difference in what you believe and how you perceive the world does kind of, it is impacted by, you know, what it was like when you were growing up and your age group and what people are talking about, what they're thinking, you know, like, but I 100% agree. I think this idea of like the whole okay boomer thing that was circulating around the internet, it just discredits entire swaths of the population based on nothing more than the year they were born. It's ridiculous.
Well, and like a bunch of Gen Xers would be like, oh, it's the damn millennials causing all the problems these days and that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, none of this, you know, these are broad generalizations that aren't really true about individuals.
Well, okay, I hear your point. I hear what you're saying. And yet at the same time, those dividing lines, much like stereotypes in general, are there with a reason and have been divided along that line for a purpose.
What possible purpose could there be for these generational titles?
As Tyler said, it separates
And who decides when these lines occur and what the years are in between these and who makes up the titles?
Well, at this point, I think anyone can take credit for making up the titles because they manifest out of the community and somehow stick. Right?
You think that these generational titles are anarchic?
I do.
Huh.
I don't think that there's a government organization going like, what are we going to call the next generation?
It's interesting
Maybe
if
the
that's
media.
the case.
Maybe.
I wonder if there's like
But
a
even
study
that's
been
still-
done on that, because like I don't know how Gen X came about, Gen Y, Gen Z, any of the gens, right? I don't know how I do know how boomers came about because, well, it was during the war. And
it was a baby boom.
It was the baby boom, and that's how the boomers came about. They're like, oh, we're seeing an increase in the number of babies born, and they're calling it the baby boom, and that's how boomers came about. So that one makes sense from just sort of how nicknames become, right?
Right.
You know, if you're a really tall guy and you're nicknamed Tiny, well, you know,
That's
you
funny.
get that. That's funny, right? So I get where boomers came from. I don't get where the rest of them came from.
So I think the rest, in my mind, it went from boomers to Gen X. I don't know what you would call those gap generations or years in between. I think Gen X came from like an outcast terminology, right? Like, you know, the cross X, like, you know, anti something or other, like that's just how you use the X. And then everything else is kind of built off that, right? Because it was X, Y, millennials, obviously, because they were, you know, at the turn of the millennium.
Turn of the century, right? Yeah.
Zoomers,
Millennial,
because
thank you.
Right. Zoomers, because you had Gen X, Y, and then Z. And then what are you going to call the Z generation when you got Gen Z? Well, the okay boomer thing was a thing. There's already the Z there. And so they're the anti-boomer.
So
And so
I think it's all derived from marketing, you know, to be honest. I think this is just a way to like divide people into groups that you can provide them consumer advertisement to.
Those are my thoughts on it. Like, I think that somewhere around the internet are a bunch of marketing types who are like, yes, let's coin this term and use it to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Regardless, do you mind if I dive into the article?
Hold that thought then, because we're going to go to the phones real quick.
Oh, cool. That's even better.
We have Joe from Michigan. You're on the air, Joe.
Yeah, my comment kind of ties into what you guys are talking about. I was going to say that those of us who are part of the 2A community.
That's the Second Amendment crowd for you, Fake Matt.
Yeah, we need to, we're not that great at PR. And I would say, invite people that you know that aren't into guns to come to the range with you, and don't bring the most powerful guns you got. Bring something that they're going to enjoy shooting. And
little plinkers.
We need to make
bring a
it
22 to the
normal.
range.
Well, I mean, especially these days, you want to bring something where the ammo's cheap.
Amen, man. I think the biggest problem is a lack of outreach. People go to the gun range and they're intimidated and nobody wants to work with them, or like they just get chastised for safety the whole time. No one's making it friendly or exciting, and I think that's an issue. In the last year, I've had so many people, especially females, come to me and be like, hey, can you teach me to learn to shoot? I want to get into guns. A lot of it has to do with COVID and just people are scared about the social fabric. And now is exactly the right time to get people excited about gun culture.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for people out there, Joe, on how to broach that subject, or?
Just, normal conversation, people that you already know. I've turned people on to guns that weren't really into them. They were kind of neutral on it. They would believe pretty much whatever the media said. And let's be honest, the anti-gun people, they're a lot more, they're better at PR. Some nut goes crazy and shoots up a school or a store or something. That's not great optics, but that's very rare. It's not most gun violence is suicides and gang stuff.
That's true.
It's with 300 and some million people in this country, man. If gun ownership was an issue, it'd be like, this would be like the Middle East. Every American city would be like, Afghanistan or something, and it's not.
So how do you counter that PR when the mainstream media, where the vast majority of people get their news, is anti-gun?
Well, I will say, it's like you guys were talking about the under 30s. I think younger generation, because of the internet, I think they're more skeptical of the media than the older generation was.
So it's a problem that'll solve itself over time.
Yeah, and I've noticed when I've gone to the range, it used to be, it'd be like, I hate to sound stereotypical, but just be like white guys, But now you see a lot more women, a lot more younger people, a lot more minorities. And at some point, somebody reached out to them people, and plus the truth of gun control.
They may have just seen all the violence that's being perpetrated against their group and deciding to take a stand for themselves.
I have a question for, any of you really, including the caller.
Joe.
Joe and Richie and Tyler. Yeah. I've seen this happen where when, as Joe said, there's somebody who shoots up like a school or something, and all of a sudden, like, they want to pass laws, limiting your guns or whatever. But when a cop shoots somebody, they never want to pass new laws limiting guns. Why is that?
All right, I'm going to hold you over, Joe, if you want to answer Captain's question, and we'll talk about it more on the other side.
I've got to go, man.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thank you for the call. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. Why does that happen when the police are responsible for the shooting? Your thoughts?
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
Do you think it's a respectable job to go around and threaten people over parking somewhere?
You're intentionally misrepresenting what a parking attendant does.
What
I
do
don't
they
think
do?
they threaten people in that manner. They write tickets.
What do you think a
it's
ticket
little
is?
Annoying.
The ticket's
You
a
see,
threat.
this is why I think you come off so bad in those videos. This is not how people act in the real world. It's very unusual.
The parking enforcers are issuing threats, and that's what a ticket is. If you don't pay the ticket, there's a consequence behind that. They'll tow your car. In some cases, they'll boot your car. It depends on what city. The people that work downtown, a lot of them loved the Robin Hooders because the Robin Hooders would regularly save. These are the people who are putting change in expired parking meters downtown. They would regularly save downtown denizens, people who are working or living downtown, from getting multiple parking tickets every month.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
And we're back with the live Thursday night edition of Free Talk Live, where you, the listener, can call in and have your thoughts expressed on air.
Here's how you call in. You stand on top of a mountain and go, Free Talk Live!
Rico Live.
Yeah, you gotta, if you yodel a little bit, it makes it easier for us to connect to you and get you on the air.
The beacon is lit.
Send up a smoke signal with this in Morse code, 603-283-6160, and we'll have Captain on the rooftop receiving those smoke signals at 603-283-6160. Sitting here in the studio tonight, 'tis I, Mr. Richie Rich, along with...
I'm not Matt, and I'm a poor substitute for him.
But you are the captain.
I am the captain, it's true.
And I am Tyler, and I'm a great substitute for me.
You are a good substitute for yourself. Have you been stolen and replaced with an exact duplicate?
If I was, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe. You got to check your eyelid to see how many dots have been put in there.
Right.
So, and the reason there's so many substitutes here tonight, unfortunately, is because the Crypto 6.
It is true.
On March 16th, 2020. Is that right? That's not right.
Yeah. It's been over a month.
It's not 2020
anymore. Oh, 2021, yeah.
Yeah. On March 16th,
cross that out. And
I will fix that.
Yeah.
On March 16th, live read.
I don't know that we have whiteout.
On March 16th, 2021, government agencies conspired together and raided the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, and the homes of Aria DeMezzo, Renee and Andy Spinella, and Colleen Fordham. The Crypto 6 were then arrested and taken into custody, and Ian Freeman and nobody remain in custody. What can you do to help? Check out the Crypto6, that is all spelled out, .com, thecrypto6.com. There are multiple ways in which you can donate to their legal defense fund because these charges aren't a joke. It's going to take a serious legal team and many experts to protect the Crypto6 from further aggression from the state. This case will likely set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. Help them in their fight for liberty and financial freedom by contributing to their legal defense fund at thecrypto6.com. Once more, thecrypto6.com. And I know they talked about it a little bit last night. There's a GoFundMe set up. I don't know if that's up on that website yet.
They've got one set up for Aria.
Yep.
If you just Google, I believe, Aria GoFundMe, it'll probably pop up. You might have to put the word trans in there to find the correct one.
The right Aria? The only trans
The one
Aria.
true Aria?
Yeah, there you go.
There are many Aria.
But this one
is ours.
This one has a GoFundMe.
And this one has a GoFundMe.
Okay.
I'm sure there's more than one Aria with a GoFundMe.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll be up on thecrypto6.com at some point. You wanted to rephrase your question as we went off.
I just want to say it a little
clarify
better. It occurs to me that when a non-police officer, a citizen, if you will,
a muggle,
takes a gun and shoots up a place, that all of a sudden the lawmakers want, we got to take away more gun rights. We got to limit. When a cop shoots a person or murders a person, that never occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
You want to take a shot at this, Tyler?
I mean, that's a great question. I think it has to do with the media narrative, which, goes into what I was talking about too, which I'll also bring up is, the media will take any instance where there's a mass shooting, which is a mass shooting is literally just 2 or more people were shot at by a person, which, they don't seem to bring in gang crime into the equation. But regardless, they'll take that and they will run with it and make it national news. But you never hear about the dozens, maybe hundreds, possibly even thousands of instances happening every year where legal gun owners use their guns in defense of themselves or other people.
Yep.
So I want to tie into that sentiment because the way you asked the question, Captain, I think that's part of the answer is when a civilian or a normie or whatever regular person shoots up someplace, it's usually an act of aggression. It's usually in violation of the rights and liberties of somebody else. And when a cop does it, the situation that they're responding to, right, that is usually an act of aggression, and they are there in the responsibility of protection of life and liberty of a third party. And that's part of why they get qualified immunity because it's part of their duty.
I understand what you're saying if that were true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain that is true because we see and hear of police committing murder or otherwise shooting otherwise innocent people or shooting them with the wrong thing, thinking they have we hear these stories all the time. Particularly, we cover them a lot here on Free Talk Live, and they get covered in the libertarian media very frequently, but not in the mainstream media. Now, if what you're saying is true, then I would agree with you, but I don't think that is true, at least not all of the time.
Okay. It's an appeal to authority, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but that argument is, well, the cops are there because we want them to be, and we allow them to have guns to do their job, so, let's make sure they're doing their job, and we give them the right to do that. It's this idea that the government has a monopoly on violence, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier. If you're using your gun in self-defense, then you should have every same right that police officers have. But like you said, qualified immunity, police officers are granted special extra rights because they've been anointed as the protectors.
And I'm attempting to make the case. I'm no fan of police, so don't call in and call me a bootlicker or anything like that. I'm doing my best to make the case. If you want to make the case for me, do please call in and support this. But what you said, that they're granted extra immunity, part of that is the case to be made is that as part of their job to protect the public, they must go above and beyond the normal natural rights of the everyday citizen in order to protect the public from this aggressor, right? And sometimes that aggressor, resisting arrest or, high off of drugs and PCP and whatever you want, like those individuals may not be willing to submit to arbitration peacefully as we as the libertarian community would like them to. And they must be compelled to cease their aggression in some form or fashion. Now, you as the average everyday citizen, it's not your responsibility to detain that person, to hold them back, to secure them somehow.
Right. In theory, the libertarian view would be the property owner's responsibility.
And as we discussed at the beginning of the show, you can send that out and give those responsibilities to somebody else.
Yeah.
And again, this is just the argument. As a society, the people we have given agency to protect the life, liberty, and property of private property owners is the local police force.
I didn't give them any agency.
I understand you didn't,
Rich,
but that's the argument.
I know that you're playing devil's advocate, and your argument actually is pretty sound, but there is one flaw, and that has to do with the fact that, like, I don't know if it was the Supreme Court, maybe it was a circuit court, but there was a decision made that cops don't actually have an obligation to protect citizens.
Right. That's a Supreme Court issue.
Right,
Yeah.
and their job is to enforce the laws of the government.
Understood.
So,
but having no obligation also does not mean that when called to exercise that duty, that they're not supposed to. Right?
yeah.
If you call the police, they're supposed to use whatever force is necessary to protect your life, liberty, and property. Agree with me, disagree with me, I don't care. Call it and tell us why. 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. More coming up on Free Talk Live.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, Hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me?
Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you AMP Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
So there were some questions as to whether or not we were back. And let me assure you, we're back with Free Talk Live.
Thanks, man. I wasn't sure.
603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, Richie Rich, along with
the captain
and Tyler.
And prior to that last little break there, we were talking about, like, you know, me playing devil's advocate to an extent. Like, I don't necessarily believe all the words that are coming out of my mouth, but I do think that the argument is strong, at least strong enough where the vast majority of people will buy into it.
Well, yeah, the vast majority of people will believe that particular argument regardless of the evidence.
The argument can be made, but if you were to take the same organization and make it private, they're held to the same standards as us. Like, there are communities in America that have private security rather than police force, and they're actually more effective. They kill less people by accident, and if they do screw up, they're held to the same standards a regular citizen is.
Yeah,
and they have the same responsibilities.
And you can fire them and hire a different agency if they do a crap job.
Which is a great idea.
And that part I will agree with. Your point going off, Tyler, was, you know, the Supreme Court issue regarding, you know, their obligation to protect. And the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that there is no obligation for the police to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to do it if they don't want to. However, someone calls 911, they have the opportunity to respond. They're not harassing some guy on the side of the road. So, yeah, we'll take this call. Why not? You know, and they show up, and they may not have the obligation to protect you, but they could. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you want them to do if you are the caller of 911.
Or they could shoot you, or they could shoot your dog, or they could.
You know, when I was a new time listener to this show years ago, I was still in the military at the time, and it was hard for me to digest some of the points made on this show, right? Because you're sitting there going like, wait a minute, that's not right. You can't say that about cops or military. And I'd think about it and be like, yeah, but they've got a good point. And so, you know, I just want to take this opportunity right now to point out that, like, the criticism isn't that, like, cops are always bad. The criticism is that, like, cops are given so much power and, like, leeway that they're allowed to be bad and get away with it.
Well, and my point specifically when it comes to police is that you have no choice and you can't fire them.
And you can't fire them. So, you know, what's the answer anytime there is trouble in a police department is the city government or whatever, you know, municipality goes, well, we just need more funding. If we had more funding, we could do more training, we could get better officers, and it just grows and grows and grows.
And here's another rebuttal for you, Captain and Tyler, is if your concern is that the problem with the mainstream media and their handling of civilian shootings is that they want to restrict gun rights for the rest of us, right? I don't want them treating the police like normal citizens, because that means when the cops pop off, the response from the media is going to be, well, we got to stop everyone from having guns. Like, cops shouldn't have guns and normal people shouldn't. It's still going to be an anti-gun response.
That's actually a fair point. That's hard to argue. I mean, like, if I were to say that anyone's gun rights should be restricted, it would be cops. But but I also agree that it's like, I'm with you. I don't think anyone's rights to guns should be stopped. But if you're going to have this kind of monopolistic authority, then you have to be held to a higher standard.
I keep saying it, and I'll say it again because it's worth saying, because it hasn't been done yet. If the police are as tight-knit of a group as they claim to be, thin blue line, and we're, you know, a badge of brothers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. If they are as tight as they claim to be, and they wish to improve their reputation, it's real frickin' easy. All they got to do is stop arresting people for victimless crimes. That's right. Anytime there's not a victim or there's no property damage, you just go, yeah, not going to arrest you.
You know, as someone who carries a weapon when they go out in public, I feel like I am providing a social benefit, knowing that if there is something that happens where someone's being violent around me, I can respond. And I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like they have that kind of social responsibility to be a protector. And in a perfect world, I would have been a cop, right? But my problem, and it's been this way my whole life. I've never wanted to be a cop, even like way back in high school, because I knew there were rules that cops have to enforce that I just don't agree with.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to bust some kids for smoking pot in an alley. Like, that doesn't concern me in the slightest. Like, at most, I'd be like, where are your parents? You know what I mean?
Right.
But like this idea that you're like going around giving people tickets for having a tail light out.
Or too dark a window.
Or too dark of a window tint. Like,
Saw that one.
It's ridiculous. And it's just a racket to produce income.
Generally, you are correct. One of the difficulties with you as the social protector out in public is that the way the system is currently set up, you are disincentivized from helping in those situations.
Yep.
Because the roles are reversed, right? You, the average citizen who's carrying a firearm or whatever weapon you're choosing to carry, have such a higher bar set for you on when you can act, how you can act, and the responsibilities of your actions that the police don't have.
Yep.
Because they have qualified immunity.
Yeah. For instance, I mean, if you're in like say a Walmart or something and there's an active shooter and you're on the other side of the building, as a gun owner and like a gun carrier, your first move should be to escape the building.
Absolutely.
Like, you should not be trying to be a hero going across this Walmart to go stop this shooter. And that has a lot to do with what you're talking about, Rich. Like, you know, you could shoot a bystander. You could just get killed in the process. But like also,
somebody else with a gun might think you're the violator.
Well, that's
and
the
shoot
problem.
you.
At the end of the day, the cops show up and they see you with a gun and they don't realize that you weren't the original shooter. You're trying to defend people. And now you're getting shot for doing something that you might have thought was valiant or heroic.
And as the valiant hero in that case, you were held to a higher standard because you could have escaped.
Yep.
What were you doing? Attacking the gunman.
Right.
That is not your role in society, sir.
Right.
The reason you carry a gun is to protect your life and your property and the immediate danger of those around you. And if you're going halfway down aisle 17 in Walmart, there's no way you're going to be able to justify immediate danger to yourself and those around.
I'd like to talk a minute and get your guys' thoughts on incentive, because my problem with the organization known as government largely is that they don't have the correct incentives because they have a monopoly on violence. They have a monopoly on whatever, even like the Parks Department. They've got a monopoly on what they do and how they do it. And so nobody has the incentive like they do in the free market to innovate or to make things more efficient or to create better methods and systems, right? It only comes from the top down. New law is passed. Okay, well, new law is passed. We got to do this now. That's the only way change occurs in the organization known as government. Now, if we talk specifically about police, they do not have the incentive to do the things that most Americans are taught to believe that police will do for them. They have no incentive to do any of that.
That is correct. Was there a question there?
No, I just want your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. But that is a problem that perpetuates all of government, right? There's no government agency properly incentivized to serve the public the way that they are, designed to do or purported to do.
Part of the problem is the types of incentives that put people in those positions, right? There was a mass shooting. I don't remember if it was Parkland. Maybe it was, I think it was Parkland. There was a cop on the scene as the active shooters were going about what they were doing, but he was by himself. And so he was too scared to go in and stop the shooter, and he didn't have an obligation to do so.
Right.
Seems justifiable.
Or incentive.
Well, right, but if you're going to be a cop, that's kind of what we assume that you would do. And somebody else in that situation might have had the courage to do so.
But campus police, he only wanted to deal with students that, weren't shooting it up. Your thoughts, 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. More coming up on Free Talk Live.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Back we are.
Are we back?
We are.
Where am I?
You're in a radio studio, man.
What? Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Speaking Yoda, we do?
Apparently, for this segment, sure. Give it a shot.
Live talk free, this is.
That's great.
I would like to carry that on, but I'm going to give out the correct call-in number.
Please do.
603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. That is how you get your thoughts on the air in the studio tonight. Richie Rich.
The captain filling in for Matt.
And
poorly.
Tyler.
Doing a great job.
I just had to add poorly. No, I like
We've been
Matt.
talking about guns and gun control all
I like
night.
Matt as a host.
This is a dedication to Matt.
A whole bunch, and he and I are very different personalities, but I enjoy him being on the show, so I am no substitute for him.
You're not my real Matt.
I'm not your real Matt. I learned it from watching you.
I think that is one of the greatest dynamics of Free Talk Live is the sheer volume of rotating hosts. Because you get so many different perspectives.
Well, and I'd just like to take a second and say to everybody that has co-hosted since March 16th, since the raid of the terrorists on the Free Talk Live studio and the Crypto 6 being arrested, I want to say thank you to everybody who has hosted or co-hosted this show for keeping it alive, for keeping it going, keeping it on the air, and doing a great job. Thank you to all of the hosts and co-hosts.
Absolutely.
And I will second that. And one of the first shows that I was back on after that raid, one of the themes that I used in private conversations with you, Captain, was like Hail Hydra. Right? I said that a number of times because you take out the handful of hosts from the Crypto 6, and the sheer volume of people going like, I can do it. I can be there. I would like to be on air for you with you guys was immense and enormous. And rotating them all in and scheduling is challenging.
Yeah. We had people that used to host, volunteer to host. We had people who have never hosted or co-hosted be like, dude, if you need somebody, I'm a little afraid of it, but I'm happy to sit in if you got a chair to fill, that kind of a thing. Right. And the outpouring of support that way was very, very cool to see.
Well, and shout out to you too, Captain, because I remember the day that happened, coming over here and being like, hey, do you guys need help cleaning up? And you were in here working to get the show on air that exact same day.
I was.
And that had to take a lot of motivation, because I feel like an instance like that has to take the wind out of your sails. And you're like, can we even get the show running? Do we have everything we need? But you weren't fazed by it, and you just punched through it, and then we were on that night.
Well, we didn't actually broadcast that night. We did a show that night.
Mm-hmm. It didn't make the radio broadcast.
It didn't make the radio
but there
broadcast.
There was a live YouTube broadcast. It still went out, and there was still production being done.
And then the next, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, the audio quality that did make it to the radio was sort of up and down. Mm-hmm. We had some problems with some static and that kind of a thing, but we managed to broadcast somehow, some way. Now, why would a guy be motivated? What was my incentive?
Right.
If you will, right? We were talking amongst ourselves during the break about incentive. What was my incentive? I really didn't have one. What happened was I was over at the Mighty Moose Mart hanging out with the rest of the crowd who were basically berating the cops verbally. Berating's probably a tough word, but
chastising,
sharing their opinions with the police about what they were doing, and to our friends arguably. And I got a call from Mark, because he's the co-founder of Free Talk Live, and we talked a little bit, and he's like, have you been over to the studio? I'm like, I tried to get over there, but I couldn't get over there. I understand that people are able to get over there now. And he's like, are you willing to go and see if we can't get something going? I'm like, absolutely. So I came right over. It was a mess, man. Glass everywhere. Folks who live in this building were, already on cleanup duty. There was a couple other people, friends of the community, also coming over to see what they could do to help secure the place, because it was totally wide open. Anybody could have just walked in and started thieving or whatever. You know what I mean? And so I just started looking at stuff, and I'm like, well, okay, it looks like this goes here, and looks like that goes there. And I knew that I could at least get a recording of a show done. So that was my minimal criteria there. I brought in a couple extra pieces of gear that I own for that specific purpose. And then between recording the one show that Thursday, was it a Thursday night?
I think it was.
Or was it a Tuesday?
I want
Tuesday sounds better.
I think it was Tuesday night. Yeah. But anyway, between recording the show the night of the raid and then the next day, I came over early and worked on, just doing some tech stuff, sort of behind the scenes and that kind of a thing, and was able to reestablish the connection to the folks who actually distribute the broadcast to all the radio stations. That for me was like winning the frickin' Super Bowl, man. You know what I mean? Like, I was so glad when I got that connection reestablished. I'm like, yes, the show will not die. I'm a huge fan of this show, even before I was a host. There's no other show like Free Talk Live on the air that I'm aware of.
No.
Where folks can call in, talk about whatever they want. Generally the hosts and co-hosts come from a perspective of freedom, liberty, peace, prosperity, right? These are all things
I think that's the criteria for
life.
being a host. You have to at least some sort of shared values if you don't agree on everything.
Yeah. And also, I couldn't think of a better middle finger to give to the multiple alphabet agencies that came in here and over there and to the other few places and arrested the crypto. I couldn't think of a better middle finger than to keep this show on the air.
Absolutely. I was doing this show a little bit last fall, and, it was just for fun. And it was one of those things where it's like, 5 years ago, if you'd asked me, or if you told me I'd be a host on the show, I'd be like, get out of here. No. I mean, because the show's what got me to New Hampshire. This is what introduced me to all of these ideas. And, but then, when Mark asked me, he's like, hey, we need hosts to come back on the show. I was like, yeah, of course. Now it matters. To me, it felt like now it was different. Now it was, you have to make a stand at a certain point.
You're right. It did change a little bit. It was a little more sort of light, and I don't know if go lucky is the right term, but there was a little more, you knew the show was going to go on because you knew Ian was going to be here to do it no matter what. Right.
That guy was super dedicated to the show no matter what. And then all of a sudden it was like, if there's not enough people to show up, the show's not going to go on.
Right.
I think that, again, demonstrates the community around the show.
Absolutely.
Like, even without Ian, right, the show managed to go on. And that's not to dismiss the contributions that Ian has given.
No, I wish he were here right now because we're still not quite
understood
100% on the back end.
But the way he built it was that in his absence, the show could go on. And we've done so. And I want to tie this into part of the conversation we were having during the break, and that is the community of libertarianism, or however you want to phrase that, and how it seems to be diametrically opposed to individuality, of which libertarians purport and propose. And I called it the fatal flaw of libertarianism, and that's everyone's an individual. Everyone's should be treated on an individual basis, and yet the human species has this innate desire for community and sociability.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile that when everyone wants to be an individual, everyone wants to do their own thing? The example that we gave was the degenerate, who only wants to do drugs and do whatever they want and lounge about and do whatever, out in the fields in the wilderness, versus, the betterment of the community as a whole.
Right.
And what do you do with that degenerate?
Yeah. Well, I think the way you put it is perfect, because what it says is that the libertarian community, at least here in New Hampshire, we practice what we preach, right? And we're living the type of life that we say could exist in the absence of a state. Who's going to build the roads? Who's going to man the hospitals and the fire trucks? Well, who's going to host the show when the host goes to jail?
Right.
People are going to step up and do the right thing. And, those people that want to sit out in the woods and smoke crack and not hang out with anybody, they'll still exist no matter what, right? But there's always going to be someone that feels that sense of community and feels that social obligation and says, I'm going to do this even if it's at a detriment to me, because I know that the community needs it.
But should those people, I'm just going to continue to use the word degenerate because it sort of fits.
Yeah.
Should those degenerates be ostracized from the greater community as a whole because of their behavior?
I mean, that's something that I think, I don't know that you can ostracize somebody from the community as a whole, because that needs a definition. What you can do is you can ostracize them from private property.
Sure.
Right? So if you don't want, Bill the degenerate, I'm just using the word Bill. I don't know anybody named Bill who's a degenerate.
You know who we're talking about, Bill.
But, if you don't want him coming on your property, tell him so. And then generally that ends the problem.
For you as an individual, with him as an individual, but not the greater community.
We can talk more about this. I have more thoughts on it.
603-283-6160 if you have thoughts. Again, Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A reach across the aisle. Lisa Brady, Fox News. A bipartisan group in Congress renews work on police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road. Also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit soti.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Good morning. Later this afternoon, I will be engaging in an extramarital affair. Of course, I will wish that I had never made the horrible mistake I'm about to spend several hours making, but sadly, I'm currently too blinded by greed and lust to care about or consider the consequences of my actions. The liaison I will be taking part in shortly with 2 poor deaf teenage runaways is in direct opposition to the values you elected me to uphold. I also wish to apologize to my wife, Linda, to my 2 beautiful children, Allison and Christopher. It hurts me more than you will ever know that this scandal will impact your life so terribly. I can only pray that the revelations you will soon hear concerning my fetishes, physical flexibility, and penis will not scar you to the point of dementia. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get to the hotel immediately, so I will not be taking questions. Thank you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back. Ta-da. Dun, da-da-da. Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. That is 603-283-6160. Call that number if you want to get on the air, because we're live and you get to talk. But you got to call in. So use your little finger dialy button things and figure it out on whatever kind of phone you have.
And sometimes people are a little afraid, right? They'll get a little stage fright.
They should be.
When they call and they're like, oh my gosh, my voice is going to be broadcast to, almost 200 radio stations or whatever.
I used to get nervous when I'd call in and be like, oh man, what if they don't like what I say?
Your heart races a little bit.
Then you just hit the button and you're off the air and that's it.
What if I stumble? I'm like, what if I cuss? Well, don't do that.
Well, yeah, please don't do that. Bad advice. Don't even put that out there. In the last segment there, we were talking about libertarian communities.
We were.
Yeah. And there's an event coming up.
There is.
Where there's going to be a whole bunch of libertarians and whatnots
it's going to be so
in a
fun.
community. And that event is ForkFest 2021. Join liberty-minded voluntarist anarchists and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for Forkfest 5. Oh, it's got a number on it now. At Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do is reserve your camping site, RV site, or more motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. And there's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees there with the unofficial Telegram and the unofficial forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Come party with the captain.
Woo! I'm excited.
Do we know yet if there's going to be a Free Talk Live setup?
There is.
Broadcasting? We do?
Yes.
All right.
For both Forkfest and the week before,
And
also
Porcupine-
for Porkfest.
Porcupine Freedom
At least that is the plan currently.
All right. So come say hi to your favorite host. Maybe. I might not be there. You never know. I don't know when I'm going to be around.
Oh, you think
just-
you're the listener's favorite host?
No, not at all. Not at all.
No ego there.
No.
I'll be at Porkfest. I'm going to try my best to stay for at least some of Forkfest. For sure.
I'm going to be at Forkfest, and I'm going to attempt to possibly be there for the weekend prior so that I can be at Porkfest for, the weekend portion
That's
and
the
then
best
stay
part.
for Fork. I don't know how that's going to work out. I have some other things going on in life. At a minimum, last year I was at Forkfest for the last 4 days. At a minimum, I'll be there for the last 4 days again. So
cool.
I will repeat my previous stint at a minimum, but hopefully I can max that out.
Party with the Captain at
Indeed.
Forkfest 5.
Well, and there's some question as to the number too, because I think the first one was called Somalia Fest, and I don't know if that was 6 years ago or 4 years. I don't, it's a decentralized thing where nobody's in charge. So I've just been saying Forkfest 2021. I realize Forkfest 5 is printed.
Look, man, I'm
on the
like
copy.
Ron Burgundy. I just read what they put in front
I'm
of me.
Ron Burgundy?
I'm Ron Burgundy. We're going to go to the phones, though.
Let's go to the
That's
phones.
what we do. We have Phil in Michigan. Phil, you're on the air.
Hi, guys. Good evening.
Hey, Phil.
I just wanted to discuss how we sometimes relate to liberals when we're talking to them about the principles of liberty.
We don't kick them out of the Libertarian Party. Please, go ahead. Carry on.
Well, oftentimes we talk about liberty and libertarianism from a deontological standpoint. And by deontology, I mean that, things are right or wrong based off of a system of duties. Like, for example, you can't initiate force against someone else.
At the bare
whereas
minimum,
I think
that should be it.
sometimes maybe a utilitarian approach may more speak out to people. By the way, I am a deontological libertarian. But when I say a utilitarian approach, I mean that utilitarianism is whatever is right or wrong is based on what gives the most right amount of happiness to the most amount of people. For example, a utilitarian argument against a minimum wage would be that if you increase the minimum wage, it's going to cause the prices of the things that you buy to go up, and that price increase is disproportionately going to affect the poorer people. So therefore, the people that are trying to help by raising the minimum wage are actually going to be hurt more by raising it.
So wouldn't the anti-libertarian from the utilitarian point of view, isn't that demonstrated in the results that we currently have, where the vast majority of people don't want to exist in a libertarian society or libertarian community, which is why they continue on with their, statist goals and statist agendas? Isn't that evidence that the utilitarian view, the vast majority of people are the happiest under the thumb of the government?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people don't understand the consequences. So another example is social welfare programs that involve government spending. That involves, of course, since governments don't have the balls to raise taxes generally, they have to go out and fire up the printing press and print money. And that results in inflation, which again, disproportionately affects the poor people.
I hear what you're saying, but I want to say from that utilitarian perspective, I think right now you're talking about values, possibly, in that libertarians, the deontological ones or otherwise, value certain things, and the vast majority of people, if you're talking about like what's best for them, fits within their values. And if they value the safety that the government provides more so than the freedom to not worry about minimum wage or inflationary prices, well, then it's still the current system is still best for them and best for the vast majority of people. They're just operating on a different set of values than you and I.
Oh, I completely agree with that as well. But oftentimes we hear about when we hear about different policies that are being put forth, it's all about helping the poor. But really, the poor aren't helped by those policies; they're actually hurt by those policies. And I think that we need to get better information out there to counter that.
Absolutely, Phil. I would say that, like Richie Rich said, part of the problem with the utilitarian approach is that some people just prefer security over all the burdens and responsibilities that come with freedom and independence. But I would also
and if
say
they're the majority of people, that's what you
they
get.
tend to be, right? Because it's just easier to shirk your responsibilities and accept this security blanket that is government. But part of it, too, is that, and this is an argument that you hear all the time when you take the utilitarian approach, is, well, if it was such a great idea, how come it's never been done before? Why isn't there stateless societies in history that we can point to and say, look how they were doing it? It was so much better.
From a utilitarian perspective, that's a great point, though.
Yeah. Well, and it is.
We have had those types of societies in the past.
I was going to mention that, too. We were having that discussion.
Over the course of time, the government erodes it and grows and erodes it. I mean, during the latter half of the 1700s, there was a pretty small government in this country, comparatively to today.
True.
Yeah, and there's also the example of the early Irish and their organizations where they had, I believe it's pronounced Tuatha. They had largely a stateless society that was, I'm going to say, pseudo-tribal. And I say that because they had organizations that sort of resembled the old friendly societies that some folks might remember, like, the Elks Lodge or whatever. This would just be a group of people that come together and pool resources for a purpose. Oh, the community needs a bridge. Oh, we need a bunch of hardworking dudes. Yep. Okay. Well, he's going to volunteer. He's going to volunteer. So-and-so is going to provide the materials, and we're all going to get together on Saturday and Sunday and go build a bridge, and the community would build the bridge. And when they were done building the bridge, they would just return to whatever it is they were doing before, whatever their jobs were, their lives, farms, and all that stuff. So the Irish, for somewhere between 900 and 9,000 years, depending on how you look at the situation.
Depending whether you can carry the zero or not.
Right. Seem to have had a stateless society in that they had no monopoly on violence for a government.
All right. Thank you for the call, Phil. More coming up on the other side with Free Talk Live. If you want to get in, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
And we're back. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 to get your thoughts on the air tonight, the Thursday night live edition. I am here. I am Richie Rich, along with...
I am the captain filling in for Matt.
And Tyler.
And before we get back into our discussion, let us thank the amplifiers.
Let us.
Tonight, the amplifier, silver amplifier, a la Loca? A la Loca? A la Loca?
Sure.
Sure, why not? However you pronounce that.
These sheets that we read off don't come with pronunciations, so we just take a stab and hope it's right.
Mine's actually a link. I could have clicked on that if this were, on the computer
so
somewhere.
It's an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But thank you, Ala Loco, for your contributions. The AMP program, again, advertise, market, and promote the show. If you like what you hear, help us get on more radio stations across the nation, across the country, and beyond.
Yeah, we're on a couple of satellite channels. We're on the internet, obviously. We're on LRN.FM. We're on freetalklive.com. And there's some other folks who recently, actually, during the Crypto 6 events, the raids and all that stuff, who have been rebroadcasting us. That is to say, they're on a platform that we don't currently have a stream going on. And so they just take our broadcast and rebroadcast it on the platform that they're on so that the listeners on that I'm talking about social media. I'm trying to remember the name of the user. Can't remember him off the top of my head, but he was... Every day he would ping me and be like, dude, do you need any help? You know, I've got experience doing this, that, and the other thing. He was like, or he'd be like, hey, I'm not getting the right feed, or we're getting silence during, you know, or after your commercials, this kind of a thing. And so there are folks, and not just him either, there's a couple of other people that take our streams and rebroadcast them of their own volition, which is awesome.
And the beautiful thing, again, about Free Talk Live, the way it's set up is, no intellectual property. So we actually advocate for and are in favor of you taking those streams and broadcasting them wherever, because the goal of the show is to get out the ideas of freedom and liberty to as wide a swath of people as possible. And if you can reach an audience that we can't, by all means, please take the stream, rebroadcast it,
Joining the AMP program helps us do that in the legitimate way of contacting radio stations and other, broadcasters and saying, hey, we'd like to get our program on your show. It takes a little money and a little time to make that happen. And so that's why we have the AMP program.
Absolutely. So thank you again, a la loca. Check that out, amp.freetalklive.com. I'm blanking on where we're at in the discussion, so I'm going to just go ahead back to this headline that we started off a while ago.
All right.
We teased it. We're running out of time to get to it.
Back to guns.
Back to guns. Americans under 30 rapidly turn against gun control laws, poll finds. Tyler,
yeah,
you brought this one in?
I did.
We teased it earlier, going like the next generation.
Yeah, so the article says 50% of Americans overall say the view they screwed up on the article. Say the view enacting the view or the new anti-gun violence laws and firearm restrictions as a top legislative authority. But among young Americans under 30, there was a 20% drop since 2018. A new ABC News Washington Post poll released Tuesday from among more than 1,000 U.S. adults found that Americans overall are less supportive of new gun control legislations than they were just 3 years ago. People between the ages of 18 and 29 saw the sharpest decline in backing for new weapons laws, with fewer than half now saying new legislation is needed to reduce the risk of future mass shootings or to block, quote, red flag buyers.
Now, that was from 3 years ago, like the time difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Could that just be the transition from the Trump to the Biden administration?
That's possible, but I really think it has a lot more to do with COVID. It has to do with the lockdowns and people seeing all of these rioters in the streets and seeing how delicate.
Wait, rioters in the streets during a lockdown? How do they allow that?
What? I thought we were all supposed to stay indoors.
To use an 80s band, it was a quiet riot.
Oh, okay.
They were quite loud.
The mostly peaceful one?
the mostly peaceful riots
riot,
where
right.
cars were on fire and they burned down federal buildings.
More power to them.
Yeah, but I know firsthand people have come to me and have admitted they were like, I used to be against guns, but I'm starting to see their utility now. There are stories of people calling their local police departments, calling 911, and the cops going, we just cannot respond. You have to defend yourself, and hanging up on them.
And the Supreme Court says we have no obligation to do so.
And they have no legal
so you're
obligation.
on your own.
I have a friend of mine. He's a former Navy guy, got out of the military, works in a business and that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about sort of the event. He lives up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about sort of the events that happened there when they burned the police department and that kind of thing.
Kenosha and all that.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kenosha's in Wisconsin, though.
Oh, right,
so I'm thinking about in Minneapolis proper, where they burned the police precinct.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, all this stuff was going on, and he's like, I got to tell you, I haven't owned a gun in 20 years, but these recent events, I went out and I got me, and he just started telling me, and he's like, it's been kind of fun because I didn't realize that, I would, miss going to the range or anything like that. So I'm having fun with it. But the reason that I got it is not a fun reason.
Right.
Because he had one of those experiences where somebody in his circle of friends or family had to call 911 and they were like, sorry, we can't respond to you right now. You're on your own.
Yep. Yeah, there's 12 million plus new gun owners in America over the last year. And I am just taking a wild guess, but I'm going to assume those aren't just all hobbyists who, decided that this was going to be their new hobby. People are scared of what's going to happen if, say the economy collapses, or say there is some kind of foreign war America gets tied up into and things start to deteriorate at home. And to me, this is the best thing to happen to gun culture in years, because, especially with young people being the future, imagine being 18, in an age of prosperity, say the 90s, when there was an assault weapons ban, you're conditioned to think that that's probably what ought to happen. But, if you're 18 right now and you see people rioting all over the nation constantly in all these major cities, you realize pretty quickly that, what we have, this stability today, is not always going to be around, and it could end at any time.
And one of the things about coups and overthrows and that sort of thing is it happens overnight. Yeah, they literally happen overnight.
Same thing with economic collapse.
Yeah,
right. Look at what am I thinking? Greece, right? Yeah. Turkey currently is banning cryptocurrencies.
Yep.
Because they do a far better job than whatever the Turkish lira is it? Is over there.
Well, and if you've studied economics, you understand this concept called Laffer curves. And what it is the idea that the more the government taxes, it brings in more revenue until it reaches a certain point where they are taxing people so much that people are actively taking steps to hide their money from the government, and it ends up reducing government revenue. So if you think this whole issue with the debt is going away anytime soon, it's only going to get worse.
And I want to suggest really quickly that if you're worried about an economic collapse, think beyond the guns, because food will be in short supply as well.
And toilet paper.
And how to get a hold of those things. Your thoughts, if you want, 603-283-6160.
Get a bidet.
603-283-6160, or just in your shower. Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Several weeks after the car accident that resulted in the death of his longtime friend Matthew Abrams, local man Keith Bisbee told Onion reporters today that he isn't sure how much longer he should continue using the photo of his deceased friend as his profile picture on Facebook.
People can't really expect me to keep this up forever, right?
Bisbee told reporters he felt like he had done more than his part to preserve the young man's memory. Bisbee added, however, that he had no idea when to go about changing his profile picture.
I'm pretty sure nobody would judge me if I went ahead and changed the photo right now. Matt wouldn't expect me to still have a picture of him up. I mean, I wouldn't expect that of him. You know, I should just do it. Maybe I can go online later tonight when nobody's on. But his girlfriend gets home late from work. I don't really want to seem disrespectful. Maybe I could do it tomorrow morning, or...
At this time, Bisbee has reluctantly changed his profile picture to an image of a gay rights equal sign and is, quote, just waiting to see what happens next.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
We are back with Free Talk Live, the live call-in show where you can get your voices heard if you call this number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. That is how you get on the air with us. Sitting in the studio tonight, 'tis I, Mr. Richie Rich, along with...
the captain filling in for Matt.
And Tyler.
And Tyler, we were talking about this article about the Americans under 30 turning against gun control.
Yeah.
And we had some theories working on that as to why, and we got to...
COVID was one of them.
COVID, economic collapse.
Yeah, the fear of economic collapse. Also, you were postulating that it might just be the shift from the Trump administration to the Biden administration.
I think that's the easiest answer because despite evidence to the contrary, right? Trump was touted as like a pro-gun, pro-2A president, which he obviously was not.
Right.
However, Biden is definitely anti-gun. And there is a vastly more evidence of him being anti-gun than Trump being pro-gun or anti-gun. And so what I'm suggesting is, like, as soon as Biden comes in, right, you go like, holy cow, they're now definitely coming for the guns. And this could lead to people going, you know, now's the time to be pro Second Amendment, pro 2A, you know, anti-gun measures, right? Like we have to actively fight this now because there is the real possibility that legislation will be passed in favor of gun control.
I would love to believe that all of the information that exists on the internet that have allowed people like us to arrive at the conclusions we have about freedom and liberty and peace and prosperity have had an effect on the youth, because they are the ones most active on the internet. All the information about the Federal Reserve, the history of governments, what is libertarianism, what is anarchism, the philosophies of these things are all on the internet now. Right, all of the all of the books, all of the literature written, even the ancient, because like anarchism and libertarianism from a philosophical perspective has been written about for what, thousands of years?
Yeah.
You know, thereabouts, or, you know, I'm pulling a number out of my butt here, but a long time. And so like they only existed in book form, and you had to go seek out the book before the internet. And so now All
Carved
of that's on the
into
internet.
stone tablets.
I would love to believe that this is a result of information being available and the youngest people finding it and learning.
I think you both tapped into something. Two different ideas. I'm going to combine them. What you're saying, Rich, about the idea that essentially young people are being reactionary to the change in administration. I think you're right about them being reactionary, but I think it's probably on a larger timetable than just the change in administration, right? I think you had a generation that grew up in a time where the media dominated the message that existed, and it was constantly anti-gun, anti-gun, anti-gun.
And still is on the mainstream level.
And still is on the mainstream media. And we're moving into a time where people are starting to see the instability I was talking about earlier. But then to your point, Captain, with the access to information that exists, like a lot of young people are into video games, and video games have guns. And now the only place you're learning about guns isn't Hollywood anymore. You can go on YouTube or any other video hosting site, and you're going to see gun enthusiasts making videos about, like, here's all the guns from Call of Duty, and I'm going to shoot them in real life for you.
Yep.
So these kids and these kids are watching those going, wow, that's awesome. And then they realize, they're like, wait a minute, I could own these guns. And then these people are basically teaching, gun safety and like kind of promoting gun community and the concepts behind it. And so I think you're both right. I think what it is that young people are reacting to this negative message that the media and the government at large put out, that, guns are bad. We need to get guns off the streets. And they're looking at that and going, well, I'm going to question authority, because that's what young people do. And then you mix that with the fact that they can get on the internet and find a plethora of information out there about, and not just guns, but like you said, like the liberty movement at large. It's like, well, what about my rights? It used to be that, like, you'd have to learn about that stuff in school, and the civics lessons they teach in school and public school are just nothing compared to what
propaganda is.
Yeah,
what they are,
you never hear about people like Murray Rothbard or Lysander Spooner or a lot of these great thinkers that can really lay out, the concepts of liberty in an intellectual manner. And now we all have access to that.
Yeah. So you brought up schools. I'm going to tie that in real quick, because this under 30 crowd, generationally, like it or not, could be described as the school shooting generation, right? There's been more school shootings like within the most recent time frame than just about in all of history. And
is that true though? Because I'm under the impression that that's not necessarily the case. It's just that we have lightning fast media now, and we hear about all of them. Whereas previously, you wouldn't hear, if you lived in Washington State, you would never hear about a school shooting in Mississippi.
You may not hear about it. However, previous generations, right, were allowed to have their rifles in their pickup trucks in high school.
Right.
Right. And in those generations where there was like a more distinct gun culture, you didn't have the same level of school violence, I believe.
Okay.
Right. Like factually, could I pull up statistic? No, not at the moment.
Yeah, I had not heard that was a factual thing, so I was just questioning.
Okay.
So,
and if it's not a factual thing, let me know. 603-283-6160. However, my point being that this is the school shooting generation, whether it's media induced or factually accurate or not. I would think that would play into the opinions of individuals when it comes to guns and gun violence, and I think it would have the opposite effect, right? Because if you've been through a school shooting, right, like do you want 16-year-olds to be able to walk down to the local general store and pick up a firearm? I don't know.
Well, that argument could go both ways. I imagine that. Well, first off, a tiny percent of students have ever been in a school shooting, right? Or have ever experienced one at their school.
Sure.
But if you're constantly being told that a school shooting is a threat and that it's something that you might go through, you're gonna think a few different ways, right? Some
you
students,
got to
like
walk through those metal detectors every day, several times.
Yeah, or do
bulletproof
like
backpacks,
school shooting drills, which exist now. It's not just fire drills anymore, but
yeah.
You might sit there and go, "Oh no, guns are scary. Someone needs to protect me from these guns." Or you might be sitting there going, I'd really like a gun if that was going to happen. It'd be nice if I had a gun. So if that does happen, I'm not a victim.
And I think you would be right on the individual level, but we are talking about primarily public school indoctrination centers where, the technology is the bulletproof backpacks. I've seen curved hallways So you can dip down the hallway and the gunman doesn't have a straight shot. Like, this is the technological advancement. The curved hallways, locks on the doors that, slam into place the minute there's an alarm that goes off that there's an active shooter. So you're barricaded in the classroom.
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm glad you said it, because the next thing I was going to say was a tangent about active shooter, the phrase. I don't like this phrase, because normally you can tell, like with either government or media, you can tell sort of the level of BS that they're at if they make up a phrase that you've never heard before that's inaccurate.
Okay.
Right? It's a shooter.
Sure.
Activity is not a designation of the shooter, right? If they were inactive, that means somebody else probably had a gun and shot them, and now they're an inactive shooter.
Well, there are shooters that do competitions, that shoot during competitions, and when they put their gun back in the case, they're an inactive shooter.
I understand, but using the terminology active shooter for somebody that may be, committing a mass murder or a school shooting or something of those, that particular phrase doesn't need to exist. It's a shooter.
Okay.
He's got a gun. He's shooting people.
So the shooter at the school facility, the technology in place is not for someone to be a hero. It's not for someone to be like, man, I wish I had a gun because then I could defend myself. Mm-hmm. It's curved hallways, bulletproof backpacks, and barricade yourself in the door. And that's the mentality that they're instilling upon those kids of that age.
It's the new bomb drill. It's the new
run, hide, fight, right?
Yeah, hide under your desk.
Yeah. And yet we see polls where they're coming away from that somehow. So it's again, an interesting dichotomy. Your thoughts? 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. More with Free Talk Live.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
Besides, we just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
You know what? We are back.
Oh my gosh. I would have never known that if it weren't for you announcing it.
Every segment. As long as I'm sitting in this chair.
Thanks, man.
We are back. Free Talk Live. I'm not going to give out the numbers because the phones are lit up.
Final segment.
And yes, it's the end of the show as we know it for tonight.
Well, we got
some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the phones are lit up, so I'm
We
not
got
going to give
some
out the
calls,
numbers. What we do need to talk about before we get to those calls is the Crypto 6. It is so important that we talk about it quite a bit. And I changed the copy, so now it says the right dates. On March 16th, 2021, government agencies conspired together and raided the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, and the homes of Aria DeMezzo, Renee and Andy Spinella, and Colleen Fordham. The Crypto 6 were then arrested and taken into custody, and Ian Freeman and nobody remain in custody. What can you do to help? Check out thecrypto6.com. There are multiple ways in which you can donate to their legal defense fund because these charges aren't a joke. It's going to take a serious legal team and many experts to protect the Crypto 6 from further aggression from the state. This case will likely set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. Help them in their fight for liberty and financial freedom by contributing to their legal defense fund at thecrypto6.com. Once more, thecrypto6.com. Tis I, sitting in the first chair for the night. I am Richie Rich, and you guys are?
I'm the captain.
And it's Tyler.
We're going to pause your article for a moment because, again, like I said, phones are lit up.
Let's do it.
And we
Pause.
P-A-W-Z,
pause.
Have an anti-gunner on the phone.
Is his name Gunner?
No.
It'd be funny if it was.
No. His name is Ryan in New Mexico. Ryan in New Mexico, you are on the air. You anti-gunner, you.
Hey, how you all doing?
Good.
Good. What's on your mind?
So, not much. Well, these gun things. So, you guys are talking about gun rights, and then you're also talking about another aspect, which is a completely separate issue about guns in schools being used by what I'm guessing is faculty. And I mean, those are two completely separate issues. But the guns in schools, I mean, they shouldn't even talk about it. This is what part of like governance is that if we are going to allow a few strong, powerful, trained people to have guns in schools, then they shouldn't be known and we shouldn't have a national debate on it. This is what our leaders of this country are supposed to do, kind of just to protect us. And then we get into these gun right things and you know, I mean, how are we going to fix this? Because you guys are saying we need to add more guns to people's sidearms and then train these people, but you know, I just live in a high crime area, and if there are people, I'm just not around good people that are going to be, you know, gun-toting citizens that are going to pass all the classes to have these guns.
Well, if you're not in a good area, who protects you now, and how reliable are they to continue to protect you?
Well, I think it's a bit of a herd mentality. They just protect themselves because they don't want to go to prison, and they're just not. People aren't just crazy. There's one or two crazy people every 3 months. And you know, I mean, this is going to be a very hurtful statement, and I don't necessarily know if it's true, so I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate. But if years and years of war have kind of hardened us and made us to where this gun central point has taken on a new kind of because it's really weird, the vitriol that the Republicans and I admit the Democrats, because I'm a little bit associated with the Democrats in that I smoke weed, but with the Republicans, I share a lot of other things in common too. But just the anger and stuff over very, very small, trivial things. I mean, the Democrats fully know that in 50% of the country there will never be gun legislation. I mean, that's ever going to be able to take away hunting guns and pistols.
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe
so
at the
we're
local
fighting
level,
over,
but right now with the control over the House, the Senate, and the White House, there is a massive push to make things a lot more difficult for gun owners that needs to be pushed back against.
Well, let me pose this. I mean, what if they actually get California and we actually do a test on California taking away every single gun besides the cops? And just to see how it goes, if that test ends up working out, what's going to happen then?
Ryan,
are we going to still continue to have this debate?
That test would never work because the problem is that you can't take guns away from criminals. They don't have their guns lawfully in the first place. Even if they originally got them lawfully, they're using them unlawfully. You're never going to get every single
ammo.
And well, again, you don't think that
these people are inherently dumb.
You don't think that they're going to be able to get their ammo from somewhere else? You don't think people
exactly? But these people are also lazy. They're inherently stupid, and they aren't able to just go through these hoops.
Criminals,
and if they do, then they go to prison.
Criminals are pretty
then
smart.
They actually get
a lot of.
We all know.
A lot of criminals, man, are pretty smart, and like you can talk, you can read interviews of cops talking to criminals after the fact and said, "Why did you choose to shoot up that gas station?" And they said, "Because there's a sign on the wall that says no guns, so I knew that nobody inside was going to have a gun." You know, they pick their locations. Gun crimes happen at gun-free zones more often than anywhere else.
Here's the thing: the decision to murder people always comes before the decision of weapon choice. So if in your example, California has outlawed regular folks from owning a weapon, right? Then the person who decides to kill is either going to illegally obtain a firearm or he's going to choose a different weapon. Perhaps he builds a bomb, perhaps something else. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that when a human being decides to kill people, it precedes the choice of weapon.
Okay, and I guess what my point is that I feel that the whole conversation about this is creating the need for guns because everybody's getting in this high-pitch, high-frame mindset, this like high temperature, and it needs to be taken down, and nobody wants to take it down because you guys are like making up these situations about gun laws because we're sitting here looking at kids getting shot at schools, and then we look at Australia where they don't have these things anymore because they took away all the guns. And it's hard to add up, and it makes impasses that I believe are bigger than just the gun rights issue, and I think that's done purposefully, and I think that's the hurtful
that part I would agree with.
It bothers me.
Yeah,
that it bothers me that I think it's a lot of racism, kind of that it has been held onto that this gun rights issue now has taken over a different kind of we of a feather fly together type of thing, and it's now a way to pick fights against other people.
I would suggest
those people pick fights right back against you.
I would suggest that the gun rights issue, at least in the American system and the paradigm that we're talking about here, is a protection of individual freedom and liberty. And when you look at other countries that have gun control, they may not have the school shootings. They may not have the gun violence, but they still do have violence, and they have less individual freedom and liberty.
Right. Like, Ryan, what you're saying, it does make sense. I agree that the gun issue is indicative of deeper social issues, right? The problem isn't guns. The problem is people desiring to murder each other, right? If you look at England, right, which is essentially a nanny state where they have cameras everywhere, you need a license to own knives, and yet their murder rates are as high as ours. They're comparable. The problem is that all the murders are happening with blunt objects, with knives, because they can't get their their hands on guns, they find other ways to kill people. And then if you want to look at that and say, let's get rid of all the guns, well, then who's going to do all the murdering? It's going to be the people that are bigger and stronger. Like, what's stopping a 240-pound man from assaulting a 90-pound woman? Well, in America, it's a 9mm pistol that she carries in her purse. That's the equalizer. In a place like England, she's subject to anyone who's bigger than her that desires to do harm to her.
That is an extremely paranoid thought, considering I go walking down the street of Central in Albuquerque, New Mexico, without any weapons, talking to these bums and these pathetic people day and night, and I don't feel in danger, and that's pretty much the scum of the earth. I mean,
you're not a woman,
my city, but
Ryan, you're not a.
Tis better to have it and not need
right
it
on Central
than need it and not have it. I got to let you go, Ryan, because we got one more call and we're pushing the clock here. But thank you for the call. Feel free to call back.
I believe they do more damage than they do good.
All right, Anders, you are on the air. Sir.
It's Aaron, and
Aaron.
Thank y'all for taking my call. I come from a background of wearing a uniform for a police department, well, actually for a sheriff's department here in East Texas, and also for the United States Marine Corps. And today, I feel like the thing you should fear is your government. And if you're still wearing a uniform, do whatever you can to get out. Because
Amen.
If we don't turn the flag upside down and get ourselves ready, I have a son that's almost died from receiving vaccine. If we don't do that and fear our government, then you're deluded. Because I've seen it all. I've seen the best and the worst. And right now, it's the worst of the worst. Running our lives and stealing their power. And there's nothing left to say other than, be self-sufficient.
Thank you for the call. freetalklive.com.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock is next after the news on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.